Your employees come before everything else. You pay everybody and you pay on time.
Karlson Barlow,
co-owner of
Altitude Solar.
Warren Jeff, he just started changing all these rules, just testing stuff. He would just throw stuff on you to see if they'd do it. And then I left. There was going through a lot of court cases, and then eventually was convicted for 2 life sentences for child sex crimes. They say don't bite off more than you can chew. That's exactly what we did. We're like, let's just go get as much work as we can, and then we'll figure it out. If there's money and there's opportunity, there's people to do it.
So why do you think they chose you over other installers?
We did good work. I mean, me and my business partner, we both worked out on the job. We took pride in our work, did a better service than everybody else. We've done about 30 million worth of solar in 1 year.
Could you give like a little bit of your life advice?
When you believe in something, you don't really have to sell it. It kind of sells itself.
Kicking Ass Taking Names podcast, and today we are here with a very special guest, Karlson Barlow. Is that how I say it, right?
Yeah, that's right.
Karlson Barlow, and I actually met Karlson at an event. He's built a business that's done over 10 million in gross sales for solar installation, right? Essentially, out in the Phoenix Valley. So big local entrepreneur, but he's got a really incredible story. I met him at the event, and just a preface, I met him and we started talking about like his story and where he comes from, and it was just a really interesting story, and so I can't wait for you guys to hear it. He has a message as well for everybody, for people who are in this particular situation, which you'll see if you see the title of the video. You probably know what we're going to talk about here. But Karlson, thank you so much for being here today, man.
Yeah, thank you. That was a wonderful introduction.
Yeah,
I'm excited to be on your show.
Yeah, dude. Well, I mean, you've got like a really unique situation, and then like just learning about it. Remember we were talking, I was like, what the, like, that's crazy. So dude, like, could you tell us first off like a little about you, the business you've built, and then like what got you kind of started that business, why that direction?
Yeah, so like you said, I'm in solar. We build a solar company. You know, we've done about 30 million worth of solar in 1 year. Like that was our best year. Went through a lot of challenges to get there, but this last business, then we've been able to do that. What got me into this was just I grew up in construction, and right. So it's not like I just picked, oh, hey, solar's, you know, there's sunshine in Arizona, solar, and jumped into it. I grew up in construction, got a job in solar as an installer, and just worked my way up, and eventually started a company. And so
are you guys primarily solar as well, or do you just do mainly solar installation? What do you guys do?
We just do installation, solar installation, fulfillment. We can sell, but my expertise is installation, construction, so that's what we focus on, and we let the guys that are good at sales go do sales, and then they send it over to us, and we handle the installation and take everything from there.
First off, I mean, let's go into your whole story. What we were talking about is that, so you were a former FLDS, right?
Yeah.
And so what does that stand for again?
Fundamental Latter-day Saints.
Okay, so can you tell me a little bit about that?
Yeah, so it's basically a split off from the Mormon church. Then they're like, they stopped doing polygamy, the Mormon church did, so these guys were like, we're going to keep doing that, and they split off, and they said the Mormons split off from us. But yeah, so they basically went and started their own thing where they continue to practice polygamy, and then it just the rules, they basically, the foundation of the fundamental Latter-day Saints gave this one guy or a couple guys a really good platform to twist something that was just a good community of people helping each other into a full-on cult where he is like a dictator there, and you do exactly what he says, or you're cut off and shunned from everybody in the cult.
So you grew up FLDS, and you said that you had like 18 brothers and sisters?
Yeah.
18 and two moms?
Yep.
And just one dad?
Yeah.
And so there's a crazy backstory to this. And then I think you also said you have a message for people, and how like that situation that they're in, like you wanted to let them know like there's options and opportunities for them to be, you know, outside of how they grew up. Like you're not stuck essentially the way you grew up, right? And that was your kind of what you were telling me. So I want to hear a little bit about that from you. Like, how did you grow up, and like what was it like being in FLDS?
So it wasn't bad when I was young. Everybody there is really industrial. Like we work a lot, we do a lot with our hands. There's a lot of really smart people there. It wasn't too bad, and then this guy, Warren Jeffs, took over, and he just started changing stuff up and just making it really bizarre. Like just changing all these rules, just testing stuff. He would just throw stuff on you to see if they'd do it, and they'd do it. So he just started getting worse and worse, where it's like, put your clothes on with your right leg first, and if it touches the floor, you have to rewash it, or don't eat corn or something.
People would follow these rules though.
Oh yeah, people are like if you didn't, it was like they'd cut you off. And
how do they even know if you break a small rule or what?
Well, yeah, a small rule, but they get like, don't use the internet. Don't.
Wait, you guys can't use the internet?
Yeah, because they don't want Warren. He doesn't want anybody to see what kind of person he is, because there was going through a lot of court cases, and then eventually was convicted for 2 life sentences for child sex crimes.
Wow.
So he didn't want anybody to see that, because then they'd probably stop following him. So he says you can't use the internet. Just changed the rules so much, and then eventually he like broke up the families. So he said he took our family and he sent my dad off. He's like, you need to leave town, go at least 500 miles away or something, and don't come back, basically. So he did, because he's just so bought into the thing.
So your dad left your family?
Yeah, when I was 14.
And then did he come back or?
No, he's still gone somewhere.
And then you also told me there was something about you weren't allowed to use the internet at all. So everybody's a very like workman based type of mentality and skill set. Like you guys build your skills. Like what is that? What was that about? Or how does that work?
So since you weren't allowed to use the internet, because Warren didn't want you online, and everybody, so you didn't really learn a marketing or sales career or anything like that. Pretty much everybody just got into the trades, and you learned construction. And, from a young age, like I got my first job at like 12 in construction. Mm-hmm. And so you learn a lot of skills. But when you leave the religion and you see other stuff, like you get online, you see business coaches and mentors and people, and they're like, you need to go knock on some doors to make some money. Then you already have because you're taught to not talk to people outside of the religion. Mm. So you have a hard time communicating and relating with people already. And then you see all this stuff, and it's like the only way to make money is to go out and sell or do marketing and stuff. And so it's a really big jump for people to make from that. Yeah. So they feel like there's no way I can make money, so I might as well give up right now. They're changing a lot of stuff, right? If they're sending him off, then they're doing crazy stuff. So they took our family after they sent my dad off, like the same month. And they said, okay, there's this new thing called the United Order, and everybody that's pure and holy can get into this. And so they did a little interview like this, where the leader, not Warren because he's in prison, would sit across from you and ask you a few questions, and then he'd be like, God's going to reveal to me whether you get to go in or not. And so we all sat in there, and he took half our family and said, okay, you guys get to go in, you guys can't communicate with these guys anymore. And so me, my brother, so we were 14, 16. We were in the don't get to move forward. And everybody older than us were in the move forward ones. So it left me and my brother, and then my mom had a bunch of young kids, like under maybe 6. And then they put another small family in a similar situation with a bunch more kids about under 6 and under in our house, and just left me and my brother to provide for them. And we didn't have jobs at the time because they were doing a lot of changes, and we couldn't work for people that were in there anymore now that were part of the better group. So we're without jobs. My dad just got sent away, and half my siblings are all gone. So now it's just us two. We got to go figure it out and provide for the whole family.
And then was your mom with you, or?
Yeah, it was my mom, and then a bunch of younger siblings.
So where the older siblings were the ones that kind of had to go on their own? Or?
Yeah, they got to go on to the better thing.
They told you guys like you're the wrong people? Like did you guys feel a certain way about that?
Oh yeah, they basically were like, they told us like, you guys are excommunicated. Yeah. But if you do good and you repent, you can be like, we'll judge you again and you might be able to get back in. Basically, you're obeying their rules, but they're like, you can't go to meetings, you can't go to church, you can't go. They had a building for the storehouse where everybody would donate all their food, and then you would go shop from there. Well, they're like, you don't get to use this building anymore. Like, you don't get to use the food, you don't get to use anything.
So you guys were left to like struggle on your own.
Basically, yeah, just like completely left, and it was just me and my brother.
And then you guys said, how many were in your house, and how many, where was your living situation then?
There was about 10 of us in the house. And then about a month later, they they made another rule where the boys and the girls couldn't live in the same house anymore. So they're like, okay, here's a little house. And they put like me, my brother, and just a bunch of other boys from around town in this 1-bedroom house, and it had a walk-in closet, and that's where my bed was. We had 2 bunk beds in this walk-in closet, and you could barely walk between them, and then 4 of us slept in that closet, and there was 10 of us in this 1-bedroom house.
Wow.
Yeah, so they stacked it up, separated the boys and girls, and then it's pretty much after this where I was like, this is too much. I'm not going to be a part of this.
So you lived in that for 2 years.
I lived about a year in that.
How did you get away from, or how did you think this is just ridiculous? Like, how did you get to that conclusion without the internet?
I got on the internet.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, and that's part of the thing. They said if you get on the internet, then you're completely useless to God. Like, God, this is God's order, this ain't Warren's. And he won't use you at all. So I got on the internet, and I was like, well, I'm basically toast. Might as well go out and find something else to do.
So when you got on the internet, you started to read about your founder, or what? Like,
yeah, I mean, I had friends that were on the internet more, and they'd tell me stuff, and I'm like, don't tell me. But then, yeah, I started to hear about it, and I mean, even for about a year after I left, I was like, that's still right, because it was just all I was taught my whole life. It's like, he's still right. I'm rebelling.
yeah,
I wanted to give other people that left or were in any kind of situation like that a chance to make some good money and not go into the groups where I started to head when I first left. And you work with a relative or somebody else that's left the religion, and there's like a little group of people, and it's a lot of like young men with nobody telling them what to do. So you get into a lot of drugs and alcohol, and I've had several people like my same age friends that have OD'd or committed suicide, and I started to see that trend. So I was like, I need to build a business and give people, especially like my family, my relatives, an opportunity to where they don't go into those bad groups. So that's one of the things that drove me to start a business.
Do you know how many people are in the religion in the FLDS?
There was about 10 to 20,000.
You guys are isn't it weird? That's funny. It's 10 to 20,000 people that are the only chosen ones, right? And then 7 billion people that are just wrong.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, they're like, everybody's wrong.
Dude, it's like so funny though, because we think about it like, well, what makes more logical sense? Like 7 billion people, like there's probably some other truths out there that are not 10,000 people in a small. Wait, so are you guys only in like 2 states, or?
They were in Texas and Arizona. It was mostly just
Southwest,
Utah-Arizona border.
Yeah, that's crazy.
At that point when I'd left, then like pretty much the month I left, some of my older siblings got kicked out of the higher kingdom, the United Order. They were kicked out, and so they came back to live with my mom. So I wasn't leaving my mom like stranded, and so it was like a good point where I'm like, okay, they're gonna be able to help take care of her, because we'd been taking care of her for the last 2 years. But I'm like, okay, they're good. They can take care of her, so I can go find something else to do.
And are your siblings still in there, or are they still some in, some out, or how does
only 2 of my brothers are out.
Everybody else is, so even your mom?
Yeah, everybody else is in, and they haven't talked to me for 10 years. I've drove up to her house, and I've talked to her a couple times, but she doesn't like it. She gets mad at me. But yeah,
she doesn't want to get in trouble, basically.
Yeah, she's like, I'll have to go like write a confession letter about how I talked to you, and it's just like, she doesn't want us to put her in that position. Yeah, the day I left, then I was 16, and they changed their phone numbers, everybody in the whole family.
They changed their phone numbers?
Yeah.
So you can't contact them even if you tried, unless you drove to...
Yeah, and then they moved right after too.
They moved them from the same city to another part of the city?
Yeah,
or?
they kind of... So the city, they own the whole town. It was like...
What town is this?
It's Colorado City, Arizona, and Hilldale, Utah.
Oh, wow.
They own the whole thing, and it was a big trust. So they would just like... one day they would show up and say, hey, you're moving to a new house. So like my uncle, they would move him all the time because he owned a business, and he'd make his house really nice. And then the second he got it done, they'd be like, okay, new house. It's just like, there was a lot of unfinished houses. They put him in like an unfinished house, so he's got to hurry and fix it up so his family can live in it. And then they'd move him. But that's pretty much what they did right after I left. They moved the family out of my parents, or like my dad's house that he built. They moved them to some other house. So I couldn't contact them. I couldn't call them. There's no way to get a hold of them.
Do you think that you just have a better like work ethic than a lot of people because of like your situation? Like you didn't have the access to the internet. I mean, that's got to be a way different mentality.
Yeah, for sure. For a lot of time, or a lot of years, it was really hard for me to communicate with people. I had to go to seminars and learn from people on how to communicate. Like I even took dating seminars to try to learn how to attract somebody. Like I was really bad at communication.
Well, you're married now, right?
So. Yeah. So obviously it worked, but it can be a good and a bad thing because I don't have a lot of, like, people talk about stuff and I'm like, I have no idea what that is. But I also didn't get a lot of stuff that you don't want put in your mind. I mean, you know, kids these days are getting fed full of so much stuff through social media and all that. It was a benefit that I got kind of that stuff filtered out.
Yeah.
So I don't look at it as a bad thing, really, but I also wish I had better communication skills or started sooner.
You starting to work, getting involved in business, learning like personal development, all of that stuff. Like what was going on there?
So I was homeschooled in the religion, and I didn't go through all the schooling. Like I didn't get to high school, and so I knew I needed to learn a little bit more. And one of my friends just introduced me to self-development books. And I read that, the Think and Grow Rich book, or not Think and Grow Rich, Rich Dad, Poor Dad. Mm-hmm. I read that book and then started reading more and more books and just kind of trying to train myself because I was like, I didn't get an education. Because that's one of the things about, say, you cut everybody off at 16. It sounds bad, and everybody has a past. Like, some people's pasts are less dramatic in the way that mine's explained, but maybe they had a parent that talked down to them, and it's gonna be a lot harder for them to overcome that than it would be even like a poor family with loving parents. Like, my parents loved me when I was there, and they did everything they could for me. So when I left, then I believed I could go achieve anything I wanted. Mm-hmm. But being able to basically say, okay, all this religious stuff, all this stuff I was taught isn't true, really helped me, because now I'm like, I got a clean slate. I get to go decide what I want to believe in the world. I don't have anybody in my ear saying, you can't do it. That's too hard to start a business. Like, there's nobody telling me you can anymore, but there's also nobody telling me you can't. And that's actually was an advantage for me.
So how did you use that to get forward, like move forward? So what did you do to get started? And then 10 million plus in sales is not like a small amount. So how did you get there? Like, what did you do?
I mean, sales is really it's not all about just being good at sales. It's really just believing in a product. So when you believe in something, you don't really have to sell it. It kind of sells itself. For our business, we've never had a sales team. It's just been me and my business partner, and we've sold all the work we've done just through word of mouth. We started in a job working. We both worked together. That's where I met him, working for another solar company. This guy was starting a solar company, and we worked as installers. One of the main reasons we actually started a business is he liked to cut corners, and so he's like, hey, go set up an LLC, and I'm going to pay you a 1099 so I don't have to pay payroll tax. So we started an LLC, and then when he stopped giving us work, then we're like, well, we're already set up. Let's just find work from somebody else. And that's kind of how we, which initially started, and then we did all the wrong stuff, obviously, at first, and had learned a lot of bad stuff, like what the guy told us, pay under the table. Nobody gets ahead paying taxes, like payroll taxes. Nobody gets ahead with that. We learned all the stuff not to do from like this guy and other people that we'd worked with. And then we eventually started our company that we have now, which isn't either of the companies we had at first. We kind of joined together, started a legit company, did everything by the books, no under the table payments, which it feels like you're going to get ahead, like cutting those corners. But in the long run, you can't ever sell your company. You can't scale it right. Everybody feels like they're their own boss. They don't listen to you. So biting the bullet up front, doing everything legit is definitely the only way to go, even though most people in construction will tell you the other way. From there,
scaling up and getting to that point where you're doing 7 figures to 8 figures, what was that like?
We just would bite off anything. Like, they say don't bite off more than you can chew. That's exactly what we did. We're like, let's just go get as much work as we can, and then we'll figure it out. And it was easier than you think to figure it out, because if there's money and there's opportunity, there's people to do it. When you don't have any work and you don't have any money to pay people, then it's hard to hire employees. But once you're like, hey, we got a good job, it's paying this much, whatever. It's really actually easy to hire people to go do it. So yeah, we just took on a lot of work and figured it out.
What was it that you guys were doing to get to that point though? Like, how did you scale lead acquisition of new deals, leads? What was that like?
It's all word of mouth. Like our business, we work for other businesses that sell solar. So we don't have to go out there, knock on doors, get new deals every time we do a new solar job. We just built relationships with other solar business owners. So it wasn't that much work to sell that much in solar because we had 3 or 4 different companies that we got all of our work from. So that is essentially just networking is what got us all that.
Getting to 8 figures, like how many employees did it take to get there?
It took 30.
30. So
yeah.
You guys started hiring a lot of employees pretty early then once you started getting these jobs, or what, was it like the right companies that you partnered with, they just had like tons of work for you? Or
sometimes it was always kind of they'd give you a little bit, see if you could handle it good, and then if you could, they would give you more.
So why do you think they chose you over other installers then?
We did good work. I mean, me and my business partner, we both worked out on the job, and we really believed in our craft. Like we took pride in our work and did a better service than everybody else in our position.
I think it's pretty easy for you to identify, right? Like your purpose is like helping those that are in that position. Because do you think that it's a lot more common than people think of, like these different religious groups, or maybe people would say like cults, or like just people who grow up in like a very weird situation? The U.S. is like a diverse melting pot. You could have people from like the corner of somewhere, like in a really weird situation and growing up in maybe an unhealthy environment. Do you think that's more common than people think?
Yeah, for sure. After I left the FLDS, then I was introduced to like 5 different groups that are essentially the same thing. That's splitting off from the Mormon church, kept doing polygamy. There's definitely a lot of people that are had the same upbringing, but the biggest thing is there's a lot of people that have their parents or people they look up to talking down to them and putting them into sort of the same category without even trying to. Just telling them you can't achieve that, or that's too hard for you, or only smart people get that. Like these subconscious things you're fed when you're a child really determine and develop how you perceive yourself as an adult. So I think that there's a lot of people that are in a very similar situation but didn't have to be in a cult.
What drove you to want to help those from that? Because you said your parents were supportive. So did you relate that voice that you're talking to about, like kind of like the church? Like you're saying that's what represents that voice to you? Sort
of. I mean, my parents, they were supportive, and they said, you can do anything, through our prophet or through the religion. So I just had to figure out how to twist it in my mind I can do, like they believed in me. They didn't talk down to me was the biggest thing that I appreciated.
How do you feel like that affected you? Do you think that was a good thing to be independent that young, or was it like a bad thing? I mean, it made you mature probably quicker, right?
Yeah, it was a good thing because now you're not afraid of taking a risk because you've already had pressure put on you. Your back's against the wall. You have nowhere to go but forward, and then you just prove to yourself, I can do it. Because if I had to provide for them and I had to go get a job, I had no job, I had to go figure it out. The guy I got a job from, then he said the first time I talked to him, he's like, there's no way I'd ever hire one of your dad's kids, because he'd like worked with my brother or somebody before. And he's like, I'm never hiring one of them again. And I was like, just give us a chance. We'll work for free. Let us come up and, because he worked on the mountain by our place, let us come up and give it a shot. And me and my brother went up there, and he loved us. Like we worked really hard. He paid us like $5 an hour, $6 an hour to start out with. It's like 10 years ago.
It's like 2000
or like 12 years ago.
It's like, what year is that? Like 2012?
Yeah, somewhere around there.
So it's like $4 below the minimum.
Yeah, he paid it all under the table, but he's like, we worked. We would go up there, stay on the mountain all week.
What were you doing?
We were building log cabins.
Oh, wow.
So we'd go up there and work 60, 70 hours a week.
What would he do with these log cabins? Was he reselling them?
Yeah, he was a contractor. He'd build them for people there was a lot of rich people that want a cool cabin up in the mountain.
Do you know how much he sold those for?
Oh, he got lots of money. That was some of my first introductions to millionaires. As I was working for him, then I got to go hang out and have dinner with people that would buy the cabins. And some of them were really wealthy guys. You
said you started one business, second business, finally ended those, combined it to one business with your business partner. and then scaled it to over 10 million. And what were like some of the steps, some of the technicals, other people who might be in the same industry, you can use that same technical jargon that you guys use, but maybe giving us some idea of like what happened and then how it became, to the level it is, or the story behind that.
Okay, so the culture is what you really need to focus on, is creating a good culture that people want to be a part of. First thing I always do is pay everybody. Like, your employees come before everything else. You pay everybody and you pay on time. That was really important for me. That definitely helped us a lot on retaining and rehiring people. The other thing that I messed up in my first companies a lot on was I would try to hire based on pay. So I would come to you and I'd say, hey, quit that job that's paying you $30 an hour. I'll pay you $35. But that brought the worst culture to my business, because nobody was there for the company. They were just there for a buck. And if they're going to leave that company for a buck and come to mine, they're going to leave mine. And then they don't just leave your company. They leave with 10 other guys. When, one company's in town, they're doing one big job. They offer everybody $40 an hour. It lasts 2 months. All those guys are without a job. They don't see that, but still, the challenge of me having to rehire everybody and train everybody in while they're gone was a lot of work. So I stopped hiring on pay based. Like, you don't come to work for us just for the most pay. You come here because of the culture, like because of how we treat everybody, the work environment. Like, we try to do as many things as we can to make their job easier when they're out on the job. Like, we handle everything in the back. Like, we get their stuff ready at the shop. Just all the little things in the business that can make so their time on the job is the most efficient. We used to, how we paid everybody, we would do like piece rate and certain things that sometimes didn't always help us in the end, because we would create guys that wanted to be our competition. At least it felt that way, and then we would have to fire them. Later on, we figured out how to make it to where, hey, let's help you get where you want to go and not feel that as a threat for where we're going. You're not our competition, but if you want to get to a higher salary, you want to get to owning your own business, let's help you build out a roadmap for that. Even if it means you only work for us for 2 years, and then in 2 years you go start your own company and we help you do that, we're going to get a better employee for the time there than we would being like, oh, you're our competition. If you're trying to go around us, or you're trying to do side jobs, then we'd let them go. Just realize and try to talk to the people and understand where they're coming from, what motivates them.
And then from there, what do you guys do as far as like they get to after 2 years and they decide to leave? If they do you guys work with them? Do you collaborate with them?
That's ideally what the best way is. Obviously, everybody has a different goal for where they want to take their life. But if they want to do something similar to what we're doing, then yeah, you'd want to spin it in a way to where you help them, but later on they can maybe contract work from you. And so it helps you too. So you're both winning versus us just viewing them as like, you're going to be our competitor. We need to cut you off.
What else was like helped you get to like the efficiencies and like the operation, keeping the operation smooth?
So everybody says like you need to care about your employees, or most people just say sound like you care, but I actually do care about everybody that works for me. Like, I don't want to tell you you're going to have a better opportunity here or to come work for my company if you're not actually going to. So I can't go lie to people and say this is better, whatever, and then burn them or in a little bit. So actually caring about your employees, and to do that, you need to talk to them and get to know them. I'll sit down with everybody and try to understand their situation. If somebody's late all the time, it might be that they're dropping their kid off to preschool, and you see them as a shitty employee, and you're like, why can't you be on time? If you're late one more time, then we're going to fire you, versus talking to them, finding out like, the daycare doesn't open until this time, so I have to drop my kid off there. Then I can adjust the schedule a little bit. I can make some changes to make it work for both of us, and then they might end up just being the best employee you ever had. So trying to get to actually understand them, and then understanding what motivates them. Because some people, money motivates them. There's like, I want to make the most money. And some people's like, I want to work around cool guys. Like, I want to be in a cool group of people that I enjoy spending my day with. So don't view all the other businesses as a competition that are similar to you. So I make it a point to get to know everybody in solar, all the other solar business owners. And in order doing that, like sometimes they have too much work, or they have an opportunity that they can't handle and they pass it on to us. But instead of viewing everybody as a competitor, then get to know them, build a relationship with everybody. And also we white label stuff for certain clients. Like, you give us a lot of work, we'll show up in a van that doesn't have our logo on it, and we'll wear your shirts and we'll represent your company. So it doesn't feel like a conflict of interest when we show up on the job. If we were wearing our shirts, the customers might be like, why don't we just go to these guys and get a little bit of a discount? Or we're going to refer people to that company. So that helped.
Being flexible, working with your competition rather than against them.
Yeah, because there's room for everybody. Like, scarcity mindset isn't going to grow your business at all. So if you think only we can be the solar installer in Arizona, is going to just limit you. But if you think there's room for us and there's room for the other guys, so let's just get to know each other and build a relationship.
Could you give like a little bit of your life advice? If you could tell people who are listening that are in this situation, that could relate to this, that could benefit from this?
I would say look at your skills. The skills you already have. You probably work for somebody. You've probably developed good skills. You're probably passionate about something. I would say look at those and try to build off those versus looking outside to everything else. Because at one point in my life, I hired a coach. He was trying to teach me marketing and a bunch of stuff. I did a Zoom call with him. He said, I got to hang out with a $50 million guy this last week. And at the same time, I'm a contractor. I'm doing solar jobs for this guy. The guy I'm contracting work from calls me and says, hey, come to the hockey game with me. So me and my wife, which is my girlfriend at the time, we go to the hockey game, and they're like, okay, go up to the boxes. We're like, what? So we go to the boxes and we go to the owner's suite with the owner. The guy I was contracting work for introduced us to this guy. He's a billionaire. And it really shifted my perspective of these guys are doing construction. This billionaire's invested in my boss's company, and these guys are making hundreds of millions of dollars. Like, he just signed some $100 million solar farm deals. And I was like, I don't need to try to go learn a whole different skill. I can make some serious money like these guys in construction, in blue collar work. Just because you don't know how to go knock on doors and sell solar or sell security or whatever, you can still make money with those skills you have. Like, you've been working for a long time in trades or whatever, you're most likely already pretty good at something. So if you take those skills and build a business with those, you're going to have a way better chance of succeeding than to start over at the bottom in something you don't know anything about and then develop skills and then start a business. You're further ahead already where you're at, even though everything online makes it look like that you're behind. And for some reason, people look at blue collar as like a secondhand job, or like they put it down a little bit, which you can make so much money in it. I've tons and tons of friends that even just work for companies make $100,000-300,000 a year as an employee in blue collar.
With that being said, I think your company's name, where they can follow you guys on Instagram. What's your tag? How do they follow you?
So you can follow me at Karlson Barlow on Instagram, Facebook, anything. Everything's just my first and last name, Karlson Barlow. And then our business, if you're interested in looking at our solar business, is Altitude Solar, or altitude.solar for our website. And
then so if there's any questions you guys have, and then Karlson, I think you're gonna come out with some more content about helping people get out of these situations, how you were able to flip it in your mind, how you said, like, take that same confidence, like I took that away, is like take that same confidence that you got, and you never had a negative parental figure that was negative to you, didn't talk down to you, but you were able to flip the positive out of this situation where you were in. And then that, with the fact that, like, you moving forward, able to build a solar business by partnering with a lot of other companies and just doing great works, understanding your industry. I think that's a pretty incredible story. So appreciate it, man. And for you guys, follow Karlson, follow us, stay tuned for more episodes. Kicking ass, taking names. Thank you.